Chapter 11. Here's another internet fiction alert for you. For almost 20 years, I've been reading that our marriage was annulled in 1998. But in fact, a legal marriage is not annulled just because an eccentric rock star says it in a press conference. That's like you saying your marriage was annulled because you took off your ring before you hit on someone in a singles bar. That is not a thing. This press conference, at which my husband and I were wearing our wedding rings, took place in Spain in mid-December 1998, while he was on the European leg of the New Power Soul Tour. In the car on the way to the Santo Maura Hotel, where the conference was being held, he enlightened me on his revelation about contracts. Everyone knew that he was against them when it came to record companies, but now he had been contemplating the contract we had signed when we were married. And he was against that too. This was baffling to me. He was the one who'd asked me to marry him when I had been perfectly happy with the way things were. He was the one who wanted the traditional vows and the $500,000 in flowers and the whole church wedding experience. But I already felt estranged and didn't want that rift to grow, so I sat quiet and confused. When we walked into the press conference, I had my game face on, hoping it would turn out like the press conference a few months earlier. When pressed to think about what truly mattered to him, he had admitted that our marriage made him a better man. My husband talked about his vision for MPG and how he was working to elevate and empower other artists. He gave his spiel about masters and slaves and not believing in contracts, something they'd heard before but knew the importance of. And then he announced that he and I were going to have our marriage annulled so we could renew our vows and continue our marriage in a less traditional fashion. I felt my eyes go wide. I sat with a frozen smile on my face as the assembled press tried to climb over the language barrier to make some kind of sense of what he was saying. I willed him to look at me so he'd see the questions in my eyes. What are you saying? How do you expect me to sit here and listen to that? I played Princess Mayte for the rest of the press conference, but in the car I was hurt and furious. Why would you do that to me? You made it sound like our marriage is a mistake, like it doesn't mean anything. He went off on a long, alarming rant that lasted late into the night. Hour after hour, as I cried and argued and tried to reason with him, he quoted scripture and dragged me through the minutiae of the biblical teachings he had been wallowing in. He wanted us to declare our marriage annulled and then renew our vows on our anniversary, February 14th. He wanted us to be baptized the same day. He wanted me to sign a paper that said I agreed to all this, that our vows were annulled and we were free from the chains of that contract. Now stay with me here, people. I refuse to be cynical about this. I don't believe this was him trying to avoid divorcing me so he could get out of a financial settlement. I think this is proof that he loved me and he didn't want to lose me. I think he was struggling with the whole Manuela flirtation. She tells me now, and most days I believe her, that they still weren't intimate until much later. She says they were friends, but I was familiar with the friendship choreography. It wasn't so much a platonic buddy relationship as it was an elegant sort of tantric delayed gratification. In any case, it was well beyond the boundaries of okay for a married man. I think he was looking for something, anything that would make him feel less guilty about betraying me, and the annulment concept allowed him to feel like he was still the one guy as opposed to the not the one guy. I tried to read that stupid paper, my eyes blurry with tears and exhaustion. It wasn't anything official or legally binding, but just on principle, I didn't like the implication with regards to Amir. Even if it meant nothing legally, it was saying that Amir's parents were never truly married. Frankly, I wouldn't have fought him over money. But this? Now you're messing with Mama Bear. What, are you saying he was born out of wedlock? Is that what you want to say about our son? No, I want to say I love you and you love me and we don't need this piece of paper telling us how to live. I want us to be baptized and renew our vows and newly married in the eyes of God. It's your eyes I worry about. You can't seem to get them off Manuela. And so on, hour after hour, the words coming out of his mouth seemed coached and contrived. I don't know if he believed it any more than I did, but he bullied me until 4 o'clock in the morning. I was desperate to lie down and even more desperate to make him shut up and lie down with me. Eyes burning, ears ringing, I let him put the pen in my hand. Defeated, numb with weariness, I scribbled my name on the paper. He was calm then. Before we fell asleep, he talked again about renewing our vows with a baptism in February. Maybe we should do it right here at our beautiful house in Spain, he said. When I woke up, he was gone. New Year's Eve was the moment Prince fans had been anticipating for 16 years. Time to party like it's 1999. I was with him in L.A., and for a moment we let go of everything that had been going on. On New Year's Day, he played the MGM Grand in Vegas for a couple of days, and then we all went back to Paisley Park. Over the course of the following year, there was never any mention of the annulment or renewal of our vows. He continued to refer to me publicly and privately as his wife. I kept flying to wherever I had to go meet up with him for red carpet and press events, and he kept promising to take time off to be with me in Spain. I continued to wait and hope, traveling back and forth from one continent to the other, from happiness and hope to disappointment and despair. Sometimes I'd show up after a performance and sit with him while he sat up discussing scriptural minutiae and rambling philosophy with Larry and Tina and others from the Jehovah's Witness crowd, all of whom seemed thrilled to be hanging out with the mysterious and wonderful at 3 a.m. I wasn't willing to chime in on these conversations. I didn't believe any of it, and I wasn't willing to pretend. I would have been thrilled to be hanging out with him myself. I got lonely sitting there in Spain. As soon as the Witness crew clued into the fact that I wasn't buying it, I felt a steady campaign to separate and alienate me. When Larry and Tina first came to Paisley Park, my husband asked me to direct a music video for Larry, and I was excited about doing that. This guy's a brilliant musician, and we came up with a great idea and had a roller rink rented out, and I don't know what happened. It just never materialized. I want to be clear. I thought Larry and Tina were wonderful people. Their daughter's a lovely person. Everyone in that crowd, including Manuela, I'm sure they're all just wonderful, wonderful people at heart. I respect their beliefs. But as the year went by, I felt less and less welcome in my own home, and I saw changes in my husband that worried me. Every once in a while he'd ask me to meet him somewhere, and I'd race to wherever that was. Sometimes it would be like a breath of oxygen. We'd connect and make love and laugh and talk about sane, meaningful things. Other times, it was as if I was meeting a stranger. Once he called me to meet him in Paris and took me to Le Crazy Horse, which is the classiest, most upscale strip club you can imagine. But a strip club nonetheless. I know it sounds odd because my husband's music was largely about sex, and I'd done some pretty out there stuff as a performer, but not like this. This was full frontal, nipples in the wind stripper stuff that reminded me of the scary, sad Joel Grey parts in Cabaret. I sat there with tears in my eyes thinking, how are you bringing your wife to a strip club? He was acting loopy and strange. I felt like I had two choices, drop dead or start drinking. 3 hours later, I was throwing up drunk in our hotel room, and he was on his way back to Minnesota. In September, I met him for the MTV Video Music Awards in New York. He was introducing TLC, so we were expected to make an appearance on the red carpet and at a number of after-parties. When we were planning what we should wear, he said, "You know what would be cool? You should wear that red belly dancing outfit." What? I laughed, thinking he was joking, but it became clear that he wasn't. He wanted me to wear the costume, and his eyes went wide when I said no. That would not be cool. It would be stupid. It crossed my mind to tell him what I thought of his corny little braids with blue ribbons, but I wanted to make peace and please him. As a compromise, I wore the belly dancing getup to the after parties, but I was horribly uncomfortable, and when we got back to the hotel, we started fighting about whether he would come back to Spain with me and what was going on with Manuel and how angry I was to be locked out of my own life. He was feeling guilty and defensive and kept coming back with all this claptrap about me not being an obedient wife, refusing to wear the belly dancing getup on the red carpet, refusing to drink the study group Kool-Aid. Finally, I pressed my hands against my face and screamed, "What is it going to take to get through to you?" I picked up a wine bottle and hurled it against the wall. It smashed and dribbled, and it did surprise him, but the feeling wasn't nearly as satisfying as I had hoped. The next day, we went to our separate corners, but we talked on the phone. He'd call me when he felt low, and most of the time, I tried to listen without saying anything I'd already said 1,000 times. We kept talking about spending quiet time together in Spain, but for the most part, I was there by myself. Sometimes I'd go to Miami to visit Mama, or I'd fly her over to visit me. I'd continue the family tradition of outrageous phone bills, talking to my mama in Miami, Daddy in Texas, my grandmothers in Puerto Rico, and Jan in New York. Jan was going through some heavy stuff. She'd been with her partner, Myra, for 3 years. They were very much in love and totally committed to each other. They still are. They were married in California as soon as it became legal in 2008. Jan and Myra were the best thing that ever happened to each other, and I was so happy for them. But when Jan came out to our parents, Mama practically had a stroke. I don't think she was completely surprised, but she wasn't ready to have her friends know that her daughter was a lesbian. And she was terrified when she thought about how her own ironclad Catholic mother was going to react. She basically turned her back on Jan, and that made me furious. It was a glorious sunny day on the coast of Spain, so I took my phone and paced the patio outside my office, calling Mama out for how she was treating Jan. This is who you are as a mother? Do you understand what I would do to have 1 hour with my son? But you're going to shun your own daughter because she found a good woman to love? I do not accept that. This is your baby. You call her on the phone right now and you beg her forgiveness. You tell her that you are her mama and there is nothing, not one thing about who she is that you do not love. You do not accept her like you're doing her a favor. You love her, unconditionally, because you are her mama. In tears, Mama agreed that I was right, and we hung up so she could call Jan. I was ready to take on anything, so I called Grandma Nellie. Standing in second position, feet apart, ballet legs strong, I kept my eyes fixed on the Rock of Gibraltar and said some things I'd been wanting to say to her since I was a little girl. You are a terrible mother. You belittled and criticized and humiliated my mama all her life, and she is one of the most magnificent women you could ever know. She was your perfect little baby, gorgeous girl, amazing dancer, amazing woman, but you made her feel unworthy of love and incapable of showing affection. You tried to make her a judgmental witch just like you. Well, she's not. She's a beautiful, loving soul who would do anything for her daughters. She's a better mother than you ever tried to be. I clicked off the call and stood there feeling my anger running through me like an electric current. I allowed myself to feel the sear of everything I'd put up with and smiled through and danced over. No more. Things were about to change. I hung up and turned to go back into the house. My office was engulfed in flames. Oh, God! Oh, God! I'd been standing in the hot sun raging at Grandma, so I hadn't felt the heat on my back. The swiftly spreading fire went up the drywall behind my desk and licked at the heavy drapes. A layer of thick smoke billowed in a tornado around the ceiling fan. I started to run towards the house, realized that was crazy, then ran to a patio wall. Fuego! I screamed. Fuego! Fuego! Ayúdame! The gardener, God bless him, came running with the hose. He had things basically under control by the time the fire department came. They told me the American adapter on my computer had started an electrical fire that quickly crawled up the wall. It was a little too symbolic. The curtain monogrammed with our family crest was now a sooty, blackened rag. The first swing of a 1-2 punch came with the release of my husband's single, The Greatest Romance Ever Sold. The lyrics about why Adam never left Eve were clearly about me and might have given me another pang of hope, if not for that bitter little twist in the refrain, the greatest romance that's ever been sold, though I wasn't sure who sold it to whom. The accompanying music video featured my husband getting down and dirty, and I mean very down and very dirty, with a girl I later discovered was a stripper from La Crazy Horse. This was pushing the envelope, even for him. Mama had blood in her eye after she saw that video. Who would humiliate his wife in public that way? No good man, no son of mine. I was angry when I saw it, but more than that, I was worried about him. It wasn't like him to be so cynical. In November 1999, He released his 23rd album, Rave into the Joy Fantastic. He'd been bartering tracks with several artists, including Annie DeFranco and No Doubt. You play on mine, I'll play on yours, which was such a cool development in the whole artist empowerment revolution thing. The song Annie played on, and this has nothing to do with her and her mad guitar skills, was called I Love You But I Don't Trust You Anymore. The lyrics are the bitter lament of a betrayed lover, and when people heard the lyrics, they leapt to the obvious conclusion that I'd been cheating on him, because I was living it up over here in Spain, where the fun never stops except when you're engulfed in flames. The truth is, the lyrics echo everything I said to him during that long, horrible night in Marbella. I remember meeting you here in the good old days. I would never pick the flower of my favorite protege. 1-2, punch. On December 31st, 1999, the last of the contracts he'd signed as Prince Rogers Nelson expired, so early in 2000 he announced that he would be called Prince again. Apparently, he felt that the unpronounceable symbol no longer suited him. I'm sure that was a relief for everyone who'd been bending over backward to insert that symbol in font collections and figure out what to call him and asking me what I called him. But I was sad to see it go. It meant something on a plane beyond words, beyond fame, beyond the ordinary, and that's the plane where his soul recognized mine. In all the years we were together, I never called him Prince. Now I did. I felt an era ending, and I knew our marriage was ending with it. He'd humiliated me, going around with Manuela and putting out a video of himself crawling up another woman's cooch. He drained the money I was supposed to be using to maintain the house in Spain, so bill collectors were banging down the door. He made me feel banished, and not just banished by my husband, but banished by God. It was as if he expected me to simply disappear, and in a way I did. I felt myself slipping down the drain and didn't have the will to fight anymore. I woke up every morning in a fog of depression and spent the day pushing terrible thoughts out of my head. My love for this man had been the formative force of my entire adult life at that point. I was only 26 years old, but I felt like I'd lived 10 lifetimes in the 10 years I'd known him. I didn't know how to be a grown-up woman without him, and I didn't want to learn. No one had ever ignited my mind or body the way he did. No one had taken me to the heights he took me to, creatively, professionally, and emotionally. We'd given each other a child. We'd given each other the dream of children. We held each other in the darkest imaginable moments and in the brightest possible sun. On March 20th, 2000, I wrote him a letter and told him how enormously unhappy I was. Seeing the words on paper, I sobbed myself empty. I have come to terms with the fact that you don't love me anymore. That was a lie I tried to tell myself. I hadn't come to terms with the loss of him. I never really did. And I believed that on some level, even though it was a level lost to him, he did love me, and always would. What you really want is to have me out of your life without having to go through the legal system. Regardless of my feelings for you, I do not wish to be humiliated anymore. I couldn't bear to write down the word divorce. What do you suggest we do in order to resolve this matter, legally, in a way that is not damaging to us? I'm sure we can handle this quietly and expeditiously as adults instead of making a spectacle out of it. I left my mansion in Spain and moved in with Jan and Myra, living out of a suitcase and sleeping on the couch in their one-bedroom apartment in Harlem. My attorney was a friend of Jan's from Jersey. I'd come to Paisley Park 10 years earlier with more than $100,000 in my belly dancing account. I was ready to leave with nothing. Jersey lawyer told me I was crazy. When Prince's high-powered attorney made an opening offer of settlement, I could keep the house in Spain, but I would get very little cash. Jersey tried to tell me, that is a crap offer. Tell them we'll take it, I said. I just want to move on. I figured I could sell the house and live on that money while I took a moment to recover and start rebuilding my career, but it took years to find a buyer. When I finally got an offer I could live with, to sweeten the deal, I had to throw in a pink BMW my husband had given me as a wedding gift. By the time I unloaded that gorgeous albatross, the cost of maintaining the house and grounds had gobbled up every nickel of equity. I'm not going to groan on and on about it, but I don't want to underplay the effort it took to come back from this heartbreak. I was seriously depressed. I would never want Gia to think that a woman's life is over if she loses her man, but that's how I felt. I'd lost the love of my life, my son, my songs, my job, my band, my home away from home, everything from Larry the Starfish to the Children of the Sun Master, which, ironically enough, was owned by MPG Records, to whom I was apparently a slave. But in that whole purple foo-foo world, only one small thing truly mattered to me: Amir's ashes. It took me a long time to find out what happened to the little urn with the dolphin family. I kept asking and badgering and getting no answer. Eventually, a compassionate friend told me that she'd heard about a troubling incident. Prince's assistant was upset that he had been asked to burn everything in the house that reminded him of me or the baby, including the contents of the nursery, Amir's crib and toys and clothes and books. Everything. I stared at her, stammering in disbelief. But surely not everything. It's all gone, she said. I'm so sorry. I sucked in a deep breath. My whole body felt taken over with rage. It felt hot and toxic and lasted for a long, long time. In May 2000, less than 60 days after I wrote that letter to Prince, Daddy drove me to my lawyer's office to sign the final papers. Jersey handed me a thick manila envelope and said, "You're divorced." Nothing but numb. I got into the car with Daddy, and we drove back to New York. Somewhere along the line, I said, "This is bullshit." Daddy was startled. He'd never heard me cuss, not one time in my life. But then he smiled and nodded in agreement. Yep, bullshit it is. All that summer, he and Mia and Mama and Jan and Myra patiently loved me back from the ledge. It sucked, but I couldn't wallow in it. I pounded the pavement in New York, hoping to get a recording contract, or dancing gigs, or anything short of the Playboy spread people kept suggesting. At one meeting, after viewing my demo, the suit told me, "We really dig that Latina Arabic vibe. We just signed a girl named Shakira." Contemplating a new direction for my life, I thought about what it took to get through that Oprah interview just days after Amir's death, and realized I was a lot better actress than I ever gave myself credit for. But to make a living at that, I'd have to start a new life in LA, the one place that had always intimidated me. Chapter 12. Right away, I accepted one hard fact about getting over my ex-husband. I would never get over him. All I could do was move on to the next thing. I hooked up an agent and started acting classes. I started forging a circle of good friends. Wade Robson asked me to choreograph a music video with Britney Spears, which was a lot of fun and got my name into circulation as someone who was still in the biz, good behind the camera, and making something of myself. I was still struggling emotionally, but I worked hard to stay in great shape, continue learning my craft, and keep my chin up. I wasn't looking to meet anybody or get into another relationship, but Tommy Lee's drum tech and longtime friend, Viggy, spotted me at a club one night and introduced us. Prince always said that if he ever had a real rock band, he'd want Tommy Lee and Dave Navarro to be in it. So it's kind of hilarious that Carmen Electra ended up dating Tommy Lee and married Dave Navarro, and I ended up dating Tommy after I moved to LA in 2001. Tommy understood what it was like to marry and unmarry a pulp culture icon. Neither one of us ever badmouthed the other person's ex. On the contrary, he was in awe of Prince, and I thought Pamela Anderson was the bomb. I loved her attitude, her openness, and the fact that she'd given birth at home. I heard through the grapevine that Prince was unhappy about me seeing Tommy Lee. I guess he thought I'd see someone normal, like an accountant or a software developer, or better yet, stay celibate for the rest of my life. But Tommy was the perfect rebound romance. He was unfailingly honest, could not tell a lie. He was a great cook, and consummate gardener who loved picking flowers and knew the name of every plant under the sun. He was thoughtful and deeply considerate of others. When he met Mama for the first time, it was 90 degrees outside, but he wore long sleeves so she wouldn't be confronted with all his tattoos. We hadn't seen or spoken to each other for about a year, but in late August 2001, I was stunned by the news that Aaliyah had died in a plane crash, and then I saw the news that Prince's father had died that same day. My heart ached for him, and I was surprised to find that the hard ball of rage in my gut had softened a bit. It had been about 18 months since we last spoke, and I was almost ready to hear his voice again, so I left him a message. "It's me. I just want to say I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. I hope you were able to make peace with him before he passed. I hope you're well." He called me as I was driving home after some MTV-related bash not long after that, and we talked for a long time as I drove through the LA traffic. We talked a bit about his father, and he seemed remarkably okay with it. Somehow, seeing his father's life in its entirety now, he was able to keep the music and let the rest go. He asked me a question about his taxes, and I reminded him that it wasn't my problem anymore. He asked me if I'd been able to sell the house, and I said I was working on it. We talked about Aaliyah's music and about the music he was working on at the time. That summer, he previewed his album, The Rainbow Children, at a week-long festival at Paisley Park. Musically, it's Prince and therefore extraordinary, but the storyline is a thinly veiled parable about Jehovah's Witnesses. And in that scenario, there's a beautiful unbeliever who gets banished to a foreign land. Meanwhile, the wise one hooks up with another woman conveniently sent to him by God. When I heard it, I fought the impulse to roll my eyes, but he didn't ask me what I thought of it, and I didn't volunteer an opinion. It felt so good driving along and talking with him. I didn't want to say anything that would tip the mood in the wrong direction. After about an hour, I was almost back in Woodland Hills, and the conversation was winding down. He said, "I should let you know, I'm going to marry Manuela." "What?" I almost rolled the car over. "No, not her. Go ahead and marry anyone else in the world, but this? No, I do not bless this. You do not have my blessing." I went off on him and he hung up on me, which was jolting. He'd never cut me off like that before. I don't know why I was surprised. I was the banished one, and she was part of the Bible study crowd, which was apparently God's own good housekeeping seal of approval. On New Year's Eve, they were baptized together and got married in Hawaii. Again, I fought the eye roll. Fought it hard. I didn't want to admit that the real reason it hurt so deeply was that I had assumed we'd eventually get back together, like Mama and Daddy. As a little girl, I learned that marriage is forever, and divorce is just a bump in the road. It was tough for me to grow up and accept that we were over. On 9/11, I was in Laughlin, Nevada with Tommy, visiting his dying father. I was trying to be there for him, but I was emotionally wrecked and drinking, which was very unusual for me. Through a haze of grief and alcohol, we stared at the TV in disbelief, like everyone else in the world, and then we flew home in a private plane. It was eerie. It felt like we were the only plane in the sky over LA. I was so grateful to have his strong hand in mine. Not long after that, Tommy asked me to marry him. He proposed with the gummy bear ring with my parents sitting there and a cascade of silly string and applause. How was I going to say no? But the next morning we woke up and had a mutual moment of, oh my God, what did we just do? The media picked up on it right away. I heard through the grapevine that Prince was distraught about it. He called one night and left a message when I didn't pick up. Hello? It was strange to hear his voice. And we never said hello. We always said hi. In our vocabulary, hello meant, what the fuck? Hello, he said again. And after a brief silence, he said, hi. And then he hung up. Tommy and I worked at staying together for a few months, but we never talked about actually getting married. At the end of the day, Tommy and I were exactly what the other person needed in the exact moment when we needed each other. And for that, I'll always be grateful. We had fun, and I was in serious need of some fun after what I'd been through in the previous 2 years. The same was true for him. During the 2 years I was with him, he and Pamela were in a fairly gloves-off custody thing. But despite that, their kids, these kids were adorable, smart, good-hearted, grateful little people. Their mom had a pretty frickin' great resume there, because children don't just fall off the plum tree like that, especially in Hollywood. I loved those kids. Still do. But they had a terrific mom, who was not me, and ultimately, that was a problem for me. I still wanted to have a child of my own, and Tommy was good with the kids he already had. We were honest about it, with ourselves and with each other. It was a deal breaker. We parted with some sadness, but we remain good friends to this day. When Prince died, Tommy emailed me. Don't know what to say. I am so sorry. I got a lovely note from his fiancée as well. I didn't speak with Prince again for several years. I saw him, of course. It was hard not to. I still loved his music, and so did the rest of the world. So I saw him on TV and heard him on the radio. We ran into each other one night at the Green Door, and he actually seemed happy to see me at first. But I was feeling spicy, so I said, "Hey, Prince. How's it going, Prince?" "Why are you calling me Prince?" he asked. "Isn't that your name now, Prince? Nice necklace, by the way." He quoted some scriptural teaching about covering one's chest. "Typical Gemini," I said. "Bring your religion to the club." He was irritated by that and went off on a toot about how he wasn't going to vote in the upcoming elections. I finally had to turn away and say to my friends, "We're going to need another bottle of champagne." In March 2004, the first year he was eligible for it, Prince was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. People are still talking about how he ripped the place apart with an incredible guitar solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps as part of a tribute to George Harrison. Rolling Stone said it could be the single greatest moment in any Rock Hall induction ceremony in its history. I sat at home watching with tears in my eyes, partly because it truly is a mind-blowing guitar solo, and partly because I was thinking about the night we were there together, honoring George Clinton. That night, I linked my arm through my husband's and said, "We'll be back for yours in a few years." I heard that he and Manuela had bought a house in Toronto. I knew that choreography too. It didn't surprise me at all to hear that they'd split up shortly after that, and their divorce became final in 2006. What did surprise me was that Manuela reached out to me and said that there was some stuff of mine in storage at Paisley Park, and I should get it. I was skeptical at first, because this message came to me on social media. Assuming it was someone pretending to be her, I replied, "Tell me something so I know this is actually you." She shot back, "Tube socks." I burst out laughing. Yeah, only someone who really knew him would know what that meant. I didn't hold back when I replied, "I have no respect for you. I dreamt of different ways to beat your ass if I ever saw you." She surprised me again by saying, "I'm truly sorry." We ended up having a very long, interesting conversation, which confirmed what I always suspected. She's a pretty cool girl. Being gorgeous is one thing, but to maintain more than passing interest from Prince, you had to be smart and strong and kind. And now that I've gotten to know Manuela, I know she is all those things. Sadly, that doesn't change the fact that she crossed the line with my husband, so I can't pretend I've never had an unkind thought about her. Let's just say the relationship status is complicated, and probably always will be. But I give her credit for reaching out to me and apologizing. 10 years later, she's a wonderful mom, and still a natural knockout beauty. In November 2006, I wrote Prince a long letter and told him that I was ready to forgive him. He called me, and we talked for a long time. "We're bound to run into each other," I said. "I don't want it to be weird." No, it's not weird. Not on my side." "Good. I'm glad," I said. "I've actually been talking to Manuela." "What?" "No, why? Don't do that." "She's a cool girl. It's fine. I'm over it. It's been a long time." He sighed heavily. "What is time? A magazine?" "Oh, so you're still funny." "Yep. I don't believe in time. It doesn't exist unless you believe in it. It has no power over you unless you grant that power." "It has power," I said tartly. "Take a look at my butt." He roared at that. and I savored the fact that I could still crack him up. "You seem to be holding up pretty well," he said, "from what I see." "Well, they do keep asking me to do Playboy." "Oh, hell no." "Just saying." We talked and laughed for a long time. He told me about his Las Vegas residency, 3121 at Rio Casino, which was essentially a 6-month tour with only one venue. I was thinking about what a luxury that would be when he circled back and started talking about time again, saying how he wanted to be like the Dalai Lama, always moving into the future, and that he didn't age because he didn't celebrate his birthday. "Oh, shut up already," I said. "You're a human being. We all age. We need to sleep and eat and breathe. Everything in moderation. And what's wrong with celebrating your life if that comes from a loving place and makes you happy?" He took that in for a moment. "So what are you doing for your birthday?" "Vegas. Would you want to come to the show?" "Of course." "Okay." "Well, okay then." We said goodbye, and I hung up feeling very glad that he had called. On my birthday, I sat in the audience, basking in that old familiar torrent of purple light and energy, and feeling that, for the first time in years, I cried. I realized how much I missed it. I was still in awe of what he could do as a performer, and the idea that this extraordinary man was once... Oh. Whoa, what? He had come down the stage and was walking toward me. When he got to the aisle seat where I was sitting, he took my hand and pulled me up into his arms and hugged me. Despite the lights and loud music and 1,000 pair of eyes in the room, I closed my eyes and let myself feel the muscle and bone of his arms. For a moment, he was that man I loved. The next moment, he was Prince again, and I found I was once again able to love him purely for that, the way I did the first time I saw him in Spain when I was 16. I thought he might call me that night and ask if I wanted to come and hang out, but I was no longer the girl who waited by the phone. I went gambling. Over the next few years, I was happy to see him reconnecting with Sheila and Wendy and Lisa and other people who'd been important in his life as well. He was always good at keeping track of the people he truly cared about. He'd have an assistant grab tapes of TV performances, appearances, articles, whatever they were doing. So I knew he was watching as I worked on movie and television gigs, some in English, some in Spanish, and one movie where I got to dust off my old German skills. Over the years, I did guest spots on Nip Tuck, Las Vegas, Psych, CSI New York, and Big Shots, and scored a nice recurring role in Army Wives. In 2011, I agreed to do a reality show called Hollywood Exes on VH1. The opportunity to star in a series that could potentially last several seasons was a gift from God. It wasn't exactly the artistic direction I had dreamed of for myself, but I was grateful, because I really needed a steady gig at that moment. I had been diagnosed with MS. This is something I had to keep hidden at the time, and have spoken about very little in the years since, because it's difficult enough to be a woman over 40 in Hollywood. I want to keep up the impression that I am vibrantly healthy, because I am. I work hard to maintain my belly dancer body, and I don't want people looking at me like I'm sick or wondering if I can hack it. When I feel the need to share my diagnosis with someone, I want them to be every bit as stunned and disbelieving as I was when I first heard it myself. To this day, I've never experienced any of the typical large muscle symptoms of MS. I woke up one morning with a weird blurry spot in my vision. The optometrist referred me to an optic neurologist who came in and casually said, "It's optic neuritis. It's a side effect of multiple sclerosis." Before I could even wrap my head around what he was saying, I was in the MRI machine, my new home away from home, and the scans showed several lesions on my brain. Which brings us once again to the cold pages of a medical text. Multiple sclerosis, MS, is an abnormal response of the body's immune system directed against the central nervous system, including the brain, spinal cord, and optic nerves. The myelin sheath protecting the nerve is damaged and sometimes destroyed, causing nerve impulses to slow or even stop. There is no cure. The goal is to manage the disease and preserve remission as long as possible. "This can't be right," I told the neurologist. "I'm healthy. I eat healthy. I work out. I'm a dancer." All that's working in your favor, she said. But this is serious, Mayte. This is something we need to stay on top of for the rest of your life. She started me on a regimen of interferon injections, which I gave myself 3 times a week in the beginning, alternating thighs to control the spread of huge purple bruises, which didn't exactly jibe with my work and life. One of my friends had been diagnosed with MS 10 years earlier, and I sometimes gave her those injections. Now I was sticking my own leg and reading everything I could get my hands on. I quickly became fluent in yet another language I didn't want to understand. So the first great gift I got from Hollywood Exes was a new circle of fabulous friends at a moment when I really, really needed good friends. The show featured several women who'd married A-list celebrities, including Andrea Kelly, ex-Mrs. R. Kelly, who was a dancer, so right away she and I had a lot to talk about. If you haven't seen it, open a bottle of wine and watch it sometime. Right now, let's fast forward again, because we're getting to the good part, the best part, the life-changing part where everything that went wrong takes a hard right, because God is good and never banished me one bit. In July 2012, I was managing my immunotherapy and had my MS in a symptom-free remission, which I hope to maintain for a good many years. I was making decent money with Hollywood Exes, and in this business, work begets work, so I was getting more one-off acting jobs as well. I was busy with Mayte's Rescue, a charitable organization that finds loving homes for abused and abandoned animals. I adopted Boogie, the dear old golden retriever, and together we had a really nice life going. But there was this achingly open space, not in my schedule, but in my soul, in my heart. I'd been thinking about adoption for years. I finally felt ready, way beyond ready, to be a mother again. My friend Diane had adopted a child, and she nudged me to take the first step, a seminar that educated me on the whole process and explained the legal requirements and procedures. I loved the idea of having a baby in my arms, but I would have been just as thrilled to adopt an older child with special needs. But with my MS diagnosis on the paperwork, I wondered if I'd even be able to make it onto the long waiting list. I filled out all the state-required paperwork, but something stopped me from sending it in. I knew they'd ask me to be a foster mom first, and it was terrifying to risk loving and losing another child, but I was ready to take that leap of faith. The paperwork was on my desk, ready to be sent out the next day, when God decided it was time to play some jazz. Fate or coincidence? I'll let you decide. Gia's birth mother, her name and identifying details will be kept private here, is tough but beautiful. She's a feisty, intelligent girl, and she owns it. Her choices are linked into her skin, a personal manifesto that was in her bones long before tattoo needles brought it to the surface. She made the choice to have Gia and place her for adoption, and she was adamant about finding her a good home. But she didn't want to put her into a foster care system, so she asked a counselor to help her find someone and navigate the legal issues. In August 2012, Gia was 9 months old, and the counselor still hadn't found anyone who wanted her. Not anyone who measured up to the standards of Gia's birth mother, that is. One day in August, this girl had a minor accident at her job. Some cleaning solution splashed into her eyes, and she was sent home for the afternoon to take care of it. As she lay on her bed, thumbing the remote control, she settled on a reality show about fabulous women formerly married to famous men. Rich ladies, she figured, with rich lady problems. Drama, drama, drama. Gossip about the drama, more drama. It made this girl roll her swollen eyes. But she decided this one chick was different. She was Latina, like her and her sisters. Like Gia. In the midst of all that fake reality, something about the Latina chick seemed real. She displayed no bitterness toward the rock star she had been married to. She spoke of him with respect and affection. It was obvious she still loved him. This woman talked about devastating losses and about moving on. In a perfect world, I'd be pregnant right now, she said as the cameras followed her into a doctor's office. I'm nervous, but optimistic. Whatever works, right? The lady was so flustered when the receptionist called her name, she dropped a stack of papers and had to get down on the floor to pick them up. After some uncomfortable small talk, the doctor said, "Currently you're 38 years old, and you've been pregnant twice, correct?" "Yes." "And what were the results of those pregnancies?" "They're not here." "Did both pregnancies result in miscarriage?" "No. The first one was to term." "Was there a genetic issue?" "Yes." "And the second one?" "The second one was a partial molar pregnancy." The girl watching the show didn't know what that meant, and they didn't break away to explain it, so she figured, whatever that is, it must be bad. "I can't wait for this part to be over," said the lady in the doctor's office. "It's hard for me to talk about the past, especially when I'm here to talk about the future." But the future she envisioned was fading by the minute. A stark conversation about ovarian function, chromosomal anomalies, and surgical procedures basically boiled down to the harsh reality that her perfect world pregnancy was not going to happen. The girl clicked off the television and stared at the ceiling. Gia was in her crib, crying the demanding, full-throated cry of a 9-month-old. The depth of the woman's sadness resonated in a strange harmony with the sound of Gia's crying. A motherless child and a childless mother. Their need for each other vibrated like the silver tines of a tuning fork. The girl picked up her cell phone and Googled the name of the woman in the doctor's office. Mayte Garcia. Thousands of results spilled out, led by the wiki basics. Mayte Janelle Garcia is an American belly dancer, actress, singer, and choreographer. She is of Puerto Rican ancestry. On Valentine's Day in 1996, Garcia, then 22, married Prince, then 37, in Minneapolis. The girl scrolled through a cache of images. She saw me dancing with a sword on my head, diving from the stage to crowd surf in Berlin, standing outside the soaring white walls and windows of Paisley Park, and walking a gauntlet of paparazzi with Prince in happier days. There was cryptic news coverage of our lost child, blunt reports of our divorce, snarky blog posts about the reality show, and a realtor's desperate sales pitch for the rambling mansion in Spain. The girl went to my website and saw my tattoos, my dogs, my dog rescue mission, and more dancing. She clicked on the contact tab and filled out the form, typing rapidly with her thumbs. This will touch your heart and change your life. Mayte, I had a baby that ended up with father offering to pay abortion. I am Mexican, he is white. He said I would be on my own if I didn't get abortion. I agreed to figure it on my own and would rather pray to God to let me cross roads with someone who can adopt her. She is now a 9-month-old girl. She is mixed with ginger strawberry blonde hair. I don't want to be a mom on welfare. Something about you touched my heart that you would be the right person to adopt her. You can see pics of her on my Instagram. You can email me. When I saw this message, my initial reaction was a sharp flash of skeptical irritation. This was someone pranking me in a very cruel way, the worst possible way. It couldn't be real, I told myself. Babies just don't drop out of heaven into your arms. That's not how it works. As I had recently learned, sitting through many hours of a seminar, being told how the adoption of a healthy baby could be difficult, expensive, potentially heartbreaking, and often impossible. If this was real, it would be like two souls recognizing each other from opposite sides of the universe, simply because they were meant to be together. How could a sensible person put her faith in something as unlikely as that? I called my friend Diane for a reality check. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm forwarding this message to you. It can't be real, can it? Probably not, she said, but let me call her and see what I can find out. I sat there, clinging to Boogie for support, waiting for what seemed like hours. Diane finally called me back. She had a long conversation with the girl. She's legit, said Diane. Her counselor has been trying to help her connect with the family. At the very least, you should think about meeting her. Still feeling very cautious, I messaged the girl on Twitter, and we began a long conversation. She told me how she'd been struggling to provide and care for Gia, how she prayed for the right family to come along, a family that spoke Spanish and English so Gia would grow up knowing both. When I asked the baby's age, she messaged, Gia was born November 12th, 2011. Oh! Boogie looked up when she heard me cry out. I had to push my hand against my chest and breathe for a minute before I replied. That's my birthday. A moment later, she sent me a picture of Gia. I clicked on the attachment and started to cry. I was looking at the most beautiful girl in the world. There was a process, of course, and I made sure that it was all done by the book. Just as I had learned in that adoption seminar, I didn't want any mistakes to be made, so I was determined to stick to the protocol outlined by the caseworker. But the first time I brought Gia home for a visit, I couldn't bear to part with her when the time came. When I called to ask her birth mother if we could extend the visit a few more days, the girl knocked the floor out from under me. I've said goodbye, she told me. I can't say it again. I need you to keep her. What? But is that even... I'm not sure we can do that. It's done. She left me staring at the phone. With baby Gia on my hip. Smiling up at me with her angelic smile, as if she knew already. That there's nothing more terrifying than getting the one thing you've always wanted. I didn't know what I'd have to do next, but I knew I didn't want to miss out on another minute of my daughter's life. I knew that this and all the cascading challenges of motherhood were now mine to figure out and push through. I would figure this out and make it happen, and for the rest of my life, I would have this baby's back, the way Mama always had mine. And I wouldn't have to do it alone. Mama took on grandmotherhood with her usual energy. Aunties Jan and Myra were enthusiastically on board. My friend Dave, a.k.a. Uncle Dave, was always there for us when we needed a hand. Gia immediately had him wrapped around her little finger, and to this day, this tough-talking Jersey guy gets misty-eyed with emotion whenever he talks about her. Not long after Gia's first Christmas with us, she was mine, signed, sealed, delivered, and life settled into a lovely routine. Daddy, a.k.a. Buelo, said I won the lottery. Actually, he said, you won the fucking lottery, but we don't use that sort of language in front of Gia, who was whip smart. By the time she was 2.5, she was articulate enough to parrot bad words she heard. The first few years of her life went by in a blissful blur of creating, coloring, singing, storytelling, dancing, jumping, thinking, and asking questions. She filled my life with a specific brand of Gia-flavored joy I could not have imagined. Piles of blessings I never knew I was praying for. She's 4, almost 5 now, so she hasn't seen Purple Rain yet, but I showed her the 7 music video a few months before Prince died. Mama, what's this song? She asked. It's called 7. Why? Because 7 mysterious assassins chased after Princess Mayte, and Prince smoked them all with an intellect and a savoir-faire. Mama, you're a dancer. Yep. Mama, who's that? That's Prince with the guitar. Do you love him? Mama, did you have a baby? Every once in a while, she stops my heart. I don't know where these things come from. Maybe that particular question was because of the children in the video, but I didn't shy away from it. Yes, I said. Prince and I had a baby boy. Where is he? He's in heaven. With Boogie? Yes. Thank God for Boogie, Gia's guardian angel. Hollywood Exes ended after a couple more seasons. I was grateful to have it last as long as it did. A steady gig is a precious commodity in this town. You've got to open a lot of clams to find a pearl like this one. I kept going out on auditions and developed a belly dancing seminar, much like the weekend programs Mama and I used to do when I was a kid. I was working hard and loving it, but being a single mother, let's just say it has a way of clarifying one's priorities. When the house in Spain sold, I was left with the chore of packing and moving all the personal belongings left in it. Ever since then, I'd been maintaining climate-controlled storage for the ton of clothes my husband left in his closet there. He never asked for any of it back at the time or answered when I repeatedly asked him, "What am I supposed to do with all this stuff?" In the fall of 2015, I decided to pull a few pieces from Prince's wardrobe and auction them off online. "I know I'll get a lot of blowback from people online," I said to Dave. "So what?" he shrugged. "You ain't made it till you've been hated." This I knew from years of celebrity life, and anyway, my alternatives were limited to 1. Keep paying for storage. Not. 2. Donate the clothes to charity for all the size extra petite rock stars living on the street. 3. Dedicate 90% of the closet space in my house as a shrine to the artist formerly known as Prince. See option 1. Bottom line, according to the divorce settlement, the house and its contents went to me in lieu of a cash settlement. In the beginning, and at the end, all I wanted was my husband. Before we were married, I asked him if he wanted me to sign a prenup, and he said no. Naturally, his people tried to get him to do a prenup. He wasn't having it. "This is my soulmate," he told them. "We're not getting divorced." I walked away with my dignity and never regretted it. But now I have a child to support. I loved my ex-husband, but I couldn't afford to be sentimental about his cast-off clothes. These were bell-bottoms and boleros, people, not sacred relics. I wanted to talk to Prince about it and ask him if there was anything he'd like to have back, but I wasn't the one with the private numbers anymore. I called and emailed several times but didn't hear from him. I wonder now if my messages ever made it past the front door. In January 2016, I heard through the grapevine that he wasn't doing well. I kept hearing rumors that he was sick and had alienated several people who cared for him. I reached out to our mutual friend Randy, the one that shot all that amazing footage in Egypt, and told her, "I'm going up there. I want to see with my own eyes that he's okay. I just need to know if you think I should take Gia. I really want him to meet her, but if things are weird..." Randy assured me that the rumors were just rumors. She said Prince was fine, and there was no reason for me to come up to Minnesota. I accepted that reassurance the same way I had once accepted my husband's promises that the thing with the pills would never happen again. It was easier to postpone the visit when I thought about Gia's little legs in the unrelenting cold of a Minnesota winter. "Maybe next summer," I said, "after school gets out." I'll never forgive myself for leaving it at that. I don't blame Randy, and she says I shouldn't blame myself, but I'll always wonder, if I'd taken Gia to meet him, would he still be alive? Would it have made a difference if he'd seen that fate and coincidence were still on our side? Pushing my gut instinct aside, I went back to my busy schedule. I selected a few items to sell and went ahead with the auction. These few items were the tip of a handcrafted artisanal iceberg, but the money was enough for me to plan a summer trip to Puerto Rico. It was also enough to make Prince's lawyer call me. He said Prince might be interested in buying back these items. "How is he?" I asked. He's fine. I would like to talk to him. Send me a list of the items. We'll be in touch." A few weeks later, Vanity died. I knew that must have left him feeling gut-shot, and I wanted to reach out to him. But the tone from the lawyer's phone call had left me with the impression that he was angry at me. I figured I'd let that settle. Wait till summer, I thought, and then take Gia to see him. He wouldn't turn us away if we were at the door, and I knew for a fact that it was impossible to look at Gia and not smile. In April, there was a flurry of canceled and postponed shows, and then it was all over the news one day that a charter jet Prince was on had been forced to make an emergency landing in Moline, Illinois, because he was unresponsive. An ambulance met them on the ground and took him to the hospital. There were rumors of a drug overdose, rumors that he had AIDS, rumors that he was suffering a mental breakdown of some kind, and rumors that all the rumors were just rumors, and it was the flu. I called Manuela, and she said I was told dehydration. But we both knew that Prince drank water like crazy. That story didn't pass the smell test. I was uneasy and frustrated. I had the distinct feeling that people didn't want me to have the full story or access to anyone who could give it to me. I knew what it was like to be inside that isolated circle, so I knew what it meant to be outside. I saw a notice on Kirk's Facebook that there was going to be a party that night at Paisley Park. I clicked a like on the post, hoping he'd see my name and reach out to me, but that didn't happen. At that party, I'm told, Prince acknowledged everyone's concern about the emergency landing and the hospital visit. He made people laugh about it. He said, "Wait a few days before you waste any prayers." 6 days later, he died. Tears go here. Tears go here. Afterword. Spirits come and spirits go. Some stick around for the after show. Since the day Prince died, people have remembered him on street corners and in cathedrals. There are a number of memorial services, some of which I participated in. One of the most meaningful moments for me was standing on stage with Sheila E. in June at the 2016 BET Awards, raising his guitar over our heads. In October, I went back to dance in a tribute concert put together by Prince's family. I think people were a little surprised that I could still do the whole 7 routine, including back bends, with my sword balanced on my head. 2 weeks later, I returned for Purple Philanthropy, Sheila E.'s benefit concert for the charities Prince supported. I've reconnected with so many people from my MPG years. We laugh and cry and feed each other's souls with stories about Paisley Park at its happiest. Even the doves felt the difference. When Prince built Paisley Park, there were 2, Majesty and Divinity, and he hoped they would breed, but they didn't for many years. Apparently, they just needed to feel some procreative love and energy in the air. Suddenly, when I was pregnant with Amir, eggs appeared and hatched. The hatchlings matured, and then more eggs appeared. Eventually, we had to get their growing family a bigger cage. The constant murmur of the doves was one of the first things anyone noticed walking into Paisley Park. But there are only 2 left now, and Prince's sister Taika says that in the days after he died, they were strangely silent. "Play some of his music," she told the caretakers, and that was wise. They heard his voice and responded, engaging him in conversation. I hear the doves now as I enter Paisley Park for the first time in 16 years. It's not exactly allowed, but Prince's brother Omar takes me there, and Fred, the property manager Prince and I hired 20 years earlier, lets me go upstairs. "The carpet is different," I say to Omar and Fred, as we wander the quiet space. "The zodiac signs have been removed." "Oh yeah, none of that back then," Fred shrugs, knowing I understand. I nod and smile. Whatever peanut butter's your jelly. I have to laugh, because I'm not convinced the suns and moons that have replaced the signs of the zodiac had any less mystic significance to Prince. The elevator where Prince's body was found has been tastefully sealed off. As I pass it, I feel sadness, but no sense of his spirit lingering there. If anything, I feel the distinct not-there-ness of him, the same vacuum I felt when I held the urn containing Amir's ashes. I knew he was gone. I clung to it only because that was all I had. Elevate. I smiled, remembering how I felt the first time I saw that word on the wall. It was the perfect word for what he did to everything he touched, including me. It was the thing he desired most for himself, to elevate to a consciousness of bliss. Now there was no doubt in my mind that he had. His office, which is now downstairs, has been left almost exactly as he left it, several style generations from what it was when he and I had our neighboring offices upstairs. It's very global. Afro-chic meets psychedelic with a circular desk and purple phone. There's a dinner table, because he liked to eat dinner without actually taking a dinner break. They left his stacks of CDs and papers and other items undisturbed, including an odd pair of shoes by a chair, like bowling shoes, but wedges. And on a credenza, there are several framed photos of family and friends, Larry's family, children of staff members. Looking at their smiling faces, I wish I'd sent him a picture of Gia. I'm touched to see that he kept a well-worn book about Egypt close at hand, and for some reason, the little pet carrier we used for our cat Isis is still sitting in the corner. It won't be part of the tour, I'm told, but I have to insist on visiting the doves before I go. They spark a familiar conversation with me, cooing and bobbing as I approach their ornate cage. I wish I could take them with me. They love to be around people, so it's good to know that soon people will be coming and going, keeping the birds entertained. Before I leave the doves and leave Paisley Park, perhaps for the last time, I lean in and whisper, "Have more babies." I've witnessed many beautiful things being created in the hours when everyone is asleep. At my house, it's the only time that's quiet. As I write this, it's been 6 months since Prince's death. For the most part, I'm finally able to keep it together when I hear his music. But some songs I'll never be able to hear without weeping. Others have taken on an eerie aftertaste. If the elevator tries to take you down, go crazy. Punch a higher floor. I try not to invest his lyrics with more meaning than he intended. Sometimes they were just words that rhymed. Some songs were written or pulled out of the vault to pay the bills. But most of the time, they were more than that. I feel a shiver of privilege whenever I get the private joke or hear a turn of phrase that originally came out of my own mouth. Sometimes, when I'm listening to a song I've heard 1,000 times before, I hear him speaking to me as plainly as if he was lying next to me in bed. To make you all smile, Jan and Myra remain happily married, restoring my faith in love, marriage, and happily ever after. My parents remain happily remarried for the 3rd time, having divorced each other twice. They are my parents. I love them, and that's all I have to say about that. Manuela remarried, has 2 adorable daughters, and works hard to improve the lives of children through her nonprofit foundation. Sheila E. and all the amazing people I worked with in New Power Generation continue to rock the world. I'm a little surprised that I haven't bumped into Larry at any of the many events celebrating Prince's life. I haven't thought about him in years. And Larry is an amazing musician who's lost a dear friend. I hope his faith brings comfort to him now, just as my faith brings comfort to me. Gia started pre-K this year with a crisp little school uniform and a backpack full of socially responsible school supplies designed by Pharrell Williams. "Don't take my picture," she frowned. "I'm taking it." "Fine." I Instagrammed her little face and looked at it with tears in my eyes 100 times before lunch. Yes, I'm that mommy. Late in the evening, Gia and I snuggle on the couch, watching TV. I've been meaning to show her Under the Cherry Moon. I still love the choice Prince made, to have it be black and white. It didn't start out that way. He started it with a vision of bright colors and Gatsby fashions. In the middle of things, he fired the director and made the post-production people meticulously uncolor it. The end result is so charming and romantic. In garish color, it could have gone a little cheesy at the end, when Christopher Tracy is gunned down on the pier. The grayscale keeps it classy and reminds me of the hours we spent watching Wuthering Heights and Philadelphia Story on the Roadie Box VCR. At the very end of Under the Cherry Moon, the camera zooms in on a note Christopher Tracy has left on a table in the hall. With love, there is no death. And then the credits roll, taking us up into heaven where Prince and the Revolution jam in living color, dancing in the clouds. Gia has slumped over, sound asleep on my lap. I kiss her soft cheek and stroke her bangs from her forehead. Her hair smells like summertime. It's an enormous truth I've had to wrap my heart around. If I hadn't lost my precious son, if the pain of that loss hadn't torn me away from the husband I loved, I wouldn't have my daughter now, and I can't bear to imagine life without her. I don't know what to make of that, other than to say that I've learned to trust God to sort it out. Someday, when I'm in heaven, with Boogie and Mia and Amir at my side, I'll ask a passing angel to explain it to me. I'm glad I took Gia to see Paisley Park that first week, because it's already changing. I feel a moment of sorrow every time I see some news item about another small piece of my memory slipping away. But when I start to get sad about it, I have to remind myself that Paisley Park was always changing. During the decade that I was with Prince, I watched Paisley evolve, inside and out, just as his music evolved, as the bands evolved, the colors, the shapes, and faces always changing. We all saw our seasons come and go, and it's okay, because that's what life is. Seasons turning, one after another, a spiral of birth and rebirth. His fans have evolved too, from big-eyed kids hitting record just in time to catch Let's Go Crazy on the boombox, to grown-ups addicted to our iPhones. Those of us who love his music will never allow it to die. As the years go by, his music will take on new dimension for us, because we'll grow wiser. We'll get closer to the sun. Those of us who love the man will never forget him. I couldn't begin to scratch the surface of his story in this space. Much of it will always be a mystery, even to me. But I've tried to speak to what was most important to me personally. He was my family. His love lives on in me, and in a strange way, our love lives on in Gia. Maybe someday she'll tell her grandchildren, he fathered me in a way, and they'll hear his music, and his love will live on in them. Never say gone. Never say gone. My husband told me over and over during those terrible days after our son died. Alone in the studio, he sang, "When you lose someone dear to you, never say the words, 'They're gone.' They'll come back." With Gia in my arms, I hear his voice in my heart, and I know as surely as I know my name that I will see my love again. Acknowledgements. This story is my truth as I remember it. Some events have been condensed, and some characters have been composited for length. Dialogue was reconstructed for dramatic purposes, using letters, videos, and public records. I've done my best to stay true to the content of the conversations, the facts of the events, and the spirit of the relationships portrayed in this book. Others may remember or perceive conversations and events differently. Though my journey has taught me a great deal about Pfeiffer syndrome, partial molar pregnancy, multiple sclerosis, the music industry, and the adoption process, I do not consider myself a medical or legal expert, and no part of this manuscript should be construed or misconstrued as medical or legal information or advice. My opinions do not necessarily reflect the opinions of NPG, VH1, or any other organizations who've employed me or hosted me as a teacher or public speaker, or any organizations who may employ or host me in the future. My love and gratitude go out to all the animals who've come across my path and to the ones I have yet to save. Mia, my guardian angel, I love you. Boogie, and all my furry angels in heaven, keep up the good work. Mayte's rescue supporters, we've only just begun. Gail, you are family. We love you. Mama, you're an amazing woman and the best mama I could have wished for. Gia and I feel the sunshine of your love every day. Thank you for always having my back. Daddy, I think we have 75 more years left. Thank you for being my daddy. Jen, I thank you for being my sister and for bringing Myra into our family. Your love is true. Dave, thank you for being there through a lot of the ups and downs. I love you all, and that love extends to family and friends too numerous to mention here. Every one of you has a special place in my heart. I'm so grateful to Team Beautiful, starting with Gladys Gonzalez, my manager, and Jennifer Gates, my agent. who helped me shape this project from the beginning. This couldn't have happened without you two. Thank you. Joni Rogers, you are the light in the dark room I was in. Thank you for hearing and helping me with my story. Darusha, the grid is real. Michelle Howry and Hachette staff, your respect for my story and for Prince's fans has meant so much to me. To Prince's family, our MPG family, the Purple Army, Sheila E., Wendy and Lisa, Satara, Robbie, Jen, Stephen, Randy, Patrick DeMarchale, and all the beautiful ones, the many brilliant artists, musicians, photographers, dancers, and crew I've had the joy of working with. Your love and support has gotten me through so much. The love is felt, and I hope you feel my love and gratitude in return. Prince, my love for you is eternal. Amir, I love you. Thank you for letting me be your mama. Gia, my angel, I dedicate this story and the rest of my life to you because it was you who brought meaning and light to all of it. Mayte Garcia, Spring 2017.